y'all. Welcome back to our very bookish channel. And 2024 is almost over, y'all. It's almost over. This is gonna be our last, most anticipated of the year.
Hey guys, and welcome to our most anticipated for November and December. Even though we are in the middle of fall and Halloween, we're currently doing our Halloween challenge videos. It is 70 degrees outside today, so it almost feels like a summer day. It feels crazy that we're going over the last 2 months of the year for our most anticipated. Typically, I would say 20 or more titles to go over for 2 months combined. At least previously in the past, I have had that many. I looked at a lot of places for November and December for this year, and it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of titles grabbing my interest. And it's just what I want to read. There are a lot of titles coming out, and I think Amanda's definitely going to have more because I saw ones that I thought she would really like. But the ones I had been most anticipating, or I should say, I think it's one, I have already read. I told Amanda I was going to cheat. I'm picking some January titles to briefly go over because I am really anticipating them. And since this is the video that we are going over what we're really anticipating, I feel like it fits anyway because January is literally the next month after December. Even with January, just a couple January books that I'm going over, I still have about half of what I normally go over, so my time is going to be a lot shorter. The first one I have is The Lake of Lost Girls by Catherine Green, and it comes out November 5th. This one has a lot of hallmarks of books that I have read in the past year, so I'm not super excited about this one. It's also using podcast, and it's a twisty tale of missing student and her sister who is desperate for answers, and it's using alternating timelines, and it says it's a haunting novel that will thrill fans. Since I've read some of what it's like, I don't know how much, but I started to feel like I wasn't going to have anything to talk about if I kept weaning down my list. So I did include it. There's a chance I'm going to read this by the end of the year, maybe even next year, who knows.
Starting off November 5th, I'm going to start off with a mystery novel. This novel is called The Author's Guide to Murder by Beatrix Williams, Lauren Willig, and Karen White. So this book is sort of being described as an Agatha Christie type novel. You've got a closed door mystery. There is a castle in Scotland, and the owner of this castle is a very infamous writer, and this writer ends up dead under mysterious circumstances. So in comes a detective to solve the crime, and the three suspects are also writers, I believe, that were staying at this castle. So a little closed door mystery there. It sounded interesting. It was a little different than anything that I've read so far this year. So I thought I would add it to my most anticipated because it sounded like something I would really want to give a try. So the next book is also coming out November 5th. It's called Swarm by Andy Marino. And this book sounded interesting. I believe it's horror. And in this book, you're following a detective who gets handed a very weird murder case that she's trying to solve, and at the same time her daughter is attacked and almost killed by a swarm of cicadas, and the novel kind of goes from there. The town gets just infested with all types of bug infestations, and they're trying to just solve this murder mystery, at the same time solve the problem with these insects and not get killed in the process. So this book sounded also very interesting to me. I feel like there have been a lot of dystopian, like end of the world type books coming out this year for some reason. So I don't feel like it's unique in that respect, but I really haven't seen many that, you know, cover insects. It's mostly been like, you know, climate or robots. So this one I thought stuck out to me a little bit, and I wanted to throw it on here for November.
The next one's called Pictures of You by Emma Gray. It comes out November 12th. And this one's about Evie Hudson. She wakes up in a hospital and she's lost most of her memories due to a crash which her husband died in. And she doesn't remember him, so she remembers, the last thing she remembers is pretty much being in high school after a party. So the life that she's had up until then, she has no recollection. So she's trying to piece her life together to know what to do next. Should she even try and remember everything, because she lost her husband and the life that she had with this crash, and she really had a lot of injuries, so she's going through a lot. And then there's a chance encounter with someone, and it says secrets emerge and it might shatter both their worlds. This one sounded really interesting. This one I actually really do want to read, so I am definitely going to be reading that one. The next one is April Storm by Leila Meacham. It comes out November 12th. It's a seemingly perfect suburban housewife. She's being pursued by a private detective and hunted by a murderer in this riveting novel. And this was the last novel by the author. I haven't read this author before, but it's being published after her death. It sounded interesting. It sounded more along the lines of fiction, and I felt like this would be very interesting to read.
So the next book on my list comes out on November 12th, and it's called I Think I Was Murdered by Colleen Coble and Rick Acker. This is an artificial intelligence mystery / thriller. So in this book, you're following Katrina, and Katrina is living her best life. She's employed by this startup technology company. She's a rising star. She's an attorney for this company. She has an adoring husband. She has lots of money. She's just living the dream. And then all of a sudden, her husband is killed in a car accident. Her CEO of her company is indicted and gets arrested. The FBI kind of locks her out of her office and freezes everything at the company. She's essentially lost everything. She goes home with nothing. And the only thing that she has is a chat box. And she set up this chat bot, and she set up this chat bot to mimic her husband. But she finds some comfort in her time of grief with chatting with this chat box. And she finally asked the chat bot, "Tell me something I don't know." And the chat bot replies and says, "I think I was murdered." So she goes on this big adventure to solve the mystery of who was her husband murdered and who did it. And that sounded very interesting to me. I could kind of see in my head, I could kind of see this playing out as a movie. So I'm really interested in picking this book up and giving it a shot. I haven't heard of these authors before, but I'm always open to trying new authors. So I think I'm going to give this one a try. The next book coming out November 12th is The Courting of Bristol, Keats by Mary E. Pearson. And this is a YA book, I believe, but I'm mentioning this because Mary E. Pearson is the author of the Dance of Thieves duology. I have not read that duology, but I've seen it everywhere. I've seen it on YouTube. I know that people have enjoyed that book, and I feel like this book is going to be pretty highly anticipated by a lot of people. So I'm throwing it up here. In this book, you're following Bristol Keats, and she is a normal girl. And she has two sisters, and they're orphaned. Both of her parents have died, so she's just struggling to make ends meet and take care of her sisters. But this mysterious aunt keeps sending her letters asking to meet with her, and she's like, "I don't have an aunt, this is a scam, whatever, I'm ignoring it." And then one day she gets in desperate situation, and she decides to meet with the aunt because the aunt has promised to give her a priceless work of art that she can sell, and this will help her get out of her financial hardship. So she goes to meet with them, and she finds out that she does have an aunt, but the aunt is part of this fae world. And so she gets kind of sucked into this fae world. They strike a deal, and the story goes from there. And one, this is fantasy, which I really like, and two, Mary E. Pearson's a very popular author, and I just think I want to try it. I have not read Dance of Thieves, like I said before, but I think it is a book that I have on my TBR that I'm interested in. So maybe I'll start with The Courting of Bristol Keats, and if I like that, I'll move on to her Dance of Thieves duology.
On November 19th, the one that I had mentioned earlier that I had read, that I had really been looking forward to, is coming out. Is She Really Going Out With Him by Sophie Cousins. If you watch our channel, you know that I adore Sophie Cousins. She has very cute romances. It reminds me of like rom-com movies. And I did an ARC review, so Amanda can link that in the comments. I very much highly suggest it. If you like Emily Henry, if you like romantic comedy movies, this one would definitely be one that you would like, but click on the link for my ARC review to learn more about that one.
The next book on my list is probably the one I am most anticipating on this whole list. It is coming out on November 19th, and it's called The Half King by Melissa Landers. This book, I'm just going to read the description because I don't know a better way to summarize it or say it. And I think the publisher for this is Red Tower, and they're kind of picky about what information gets out before the book's released. So I would hate to like embellish something or assume something about the book. So I'm just going to read the description that they have for you. The great betrayal changed everything for the Allied realm. Long ago, the kingdom's noble houses rose up against the goddess, and for their treachery, the firstborn of each noble family was cursed. One with perilous beauty, one with destructive knowledge, and one with insatiable bloodlust. But the royal house Mortia received the worst affliction of all. For while the king exists during the day, he fades into nothingness at night until his 21st birthday, when he will be lost to the shadows forever. Now an acolyte has arrived at court. Like all the second-born children of the Allied realm, she's destined to serve the goddess and become a seer. Only Circe Solon has no gift of foretelling, and in fact, she has no magical gift at all. Instead, she's surrounded by courtiers and priests, smiling sycophants whose hearts are filled with secrets and lies, and at the center of it all sits His Majesty Kian Hannibal Mortia, with his haunting eyes, sharp tongue, and an unerring ability to send her pulse skittering at the worst possible moments. Falling for him is unthinkable because the king is the last of his line, and as the specter of his 21st birthday and the full force of his curse approaches, the kingdom holds its breath. But there's only one way to save a dying king, and it lies with one person who's hiding the biggest secret of all. So, I don't know, it just sounded really good. Obviously, it's a very pretty book, and I've really been loving Red Tower books. I recently have read Bloodguard, and I did get the ARC, but the book is out, and this is a Red Tower book that I just really enjoyed. This is like one of the top. I mean, obviously Fourth Wing, but like this one's really, really good. They also have Heavenbreaker, which is also a favorite of mine. And I mean, their books are pretty, but they have all been fairly good too. So I'm gonna just keep going and reading Red Tower books and trusting the works that they put out. The next book, November 26th, is an author that I have only read one of her books, but I absolutely loved. It was a 5-star read for me. Is putting out a new book. This is YA, so I'm like timid about it, but I just have loved this author's writing. So this is Darkly by Marissa Pessl. Marissa Pessl wrote The Night Film. I read this book. I'm pretty sure it was very early in this year, and I just really enjoyed that book. It was kind of long. It's a horror book, but it had mixed media. You know, you could find, there's websites printed in the book, there's pictures in the book. It was a haunting tale, and I enjoyed unraveling the mystery and following along on that journey, and her writing was super, super impressive. This book kind of goes along the themes of technology as well. In this book, you're following Dia, and Dia is obsessed with Louisiana Verda, who is the person that owns a company called Darkly. And Dia, along with 6 other people, are chosen to do an internship at Darkly Company, and she cannot believe her luck. She is so excited, but just when she arrives, the owner, Louisiana, which she's obsessed with, is found dead. And so naturally, Dia and these other interns start digging into the company and trying to solve what happened to Louisiana, and she just starts uncovering all these dark secrets about this company, and I think she starts finding out that this company and maybe even some of the interns that she's with are not who they appear to be. So interesting premise, and like I said, I just want to read anything written by Marissa Pessl, and since this is a new book coming out, I'm going to give it a shot.
The next one I actually have an ARC is an advanced reading copy. I have a physical ARC for this, and it is Trouble Island by Sharon Short. She actually is local to the Dayton area. She also writes under a pseudonym, Jess Montgomery, which is more like historical mysteries, I would say. I haven't read them, I just know of them. But this one I will just read the back of the book because it best explains it in my opinion. Tour de force that grabbed me by the throat with the first page, do not miss this book, was Linda Castillo, who's an author who she wrote on the back of this. On an island full of secrets, is death the only escape? Many miles from anywhere in the middle of Lake Erie, Trouble Island serves as a stop-off for gangsters as they run between America and Canada. The remote isle is also the permanent home to two women, Aurelia, who serves as a maid to Rosita, lady of the mansion and wife to the notorious Prohibition gangster Eddie McGee, in the winter of 1932. The women anticipate the arrival of Eddie and his strange coterie, his right-hand man, a doctor, a cousin, a famous actor, and a rival gangster who Rosita believes murdered their only son. Aurelia wants nothing more than to escape Trouble Island, but she is hiding a secret of her own. She is not a maid, but a gangster's wife in hiding, and it has become clear that Rosita wants to keep Aurelia right where she is. When Rosita suddenly disappears, Aurelia plans for a getaway, but instead finds Rosita's body in the water. Then the group of criminals, celebrities, and scoundrels arrives, and an ice storm makes an unexpected landfall, cutting Trouble Island off from both mainlands with more than one murderer among them. It sounded really interesting and nothing like I have read, so that's one of the reasons I wanted to read this one, but I was also happy to get an advanced reading copy, and hopefully I'll get a chance to read this before the date. I'm not sure if I said the date. It comes out December 3rd. You know, there's not a lot when I'm already in December.
So jumping into December, the first book of December that I want to talk about is also a Red Tower book, and it's called The Last One by Rachel Housel Hall. This is not a new author. She is typically known for her thrillers, but this is her first romantasy book she's putting out. So and you guys know, like, I don't know, romantasy, I have not found one that lives up to Fourth Wing, but I keep trying, and I'm really pleasantly surprised with a lot of them. A lot of them, I think, have just enough fantasy to keep me interested, and, you know, a little bit of romance never hurt anyone. So I've been kind of following this romantasy kick a little bit and been interested in reading some of the newer books coming out. So I'm putting this one on the list. So since it's a Red Tower book, again, I'm just going to read the description. Thrown into a desolate land of sickness and unnatural beast, Kai wakes in the woods with no idea who she is or how she got there. All she knows that if she cannot reach the Sea of Devor, even this hellscape will get worse. But when she sees the village blacksmith fight invaders with unspeakable skill, she decides to accept his offer for help. Too bad he's as skilled at annoying her as he is at fighting. As she searches for answers, Kai only finds more questions, especially regarding the blacksmith who can ignite her body like a flame, then douse it like ice with the next breath. And no one is what or who they appear to be in this kingdom of Vineverdith, including the man whose secrets might be as deadly as the land itself. So, I don't know, this one feels a little more heavy on the romance than the fantasy, so I'm not sure where I'm gonna land with this one, but I have to give it a try. I have to kind of get a feel for it and see for myself. The next book coming out December 3rd is called Born into the Night by Emily Bisbach. And the description of this book is good, but what got me was a little blurb, and I know I have been burned so many times by the blurbs, but it says, a dark academia, parallel universe, adult fantasy, perfect for fans of A Discovery of Witches and The Da Vinci Code. And everything about that just appealed to me. I love dark academia books. I obviously love adult fantasy. I have read the first two books of the Discovery of Witches series by Deborah Harkness, and I don't remember much about them, but I do remember really, really enjoying the books. I read them like 10 years ago, like a really long time ago, and it is a series I think about often and think about going back and revisiting, so I felt like that was appealing. And then the Da Vinci Code, you know, some kind of puzzle mind game book. I mean, everything about that sounded interesting. So in this book, you're following Evie. Evie's a young woman who's from another universe, but she does not remember anything about the alternate universe she's from. And one day, she bumps into a stranger who reunites her with a book that is a family heirloom. And she all of a sudden remembers who this stranger is. And he kind of helps her remember her past. They go back to this alternate universe because they're trying to translate this important heirloom for an important reason. But she doesn't know how to do it, so she goes back to try to get answers and translate this book and unlock this mystery. And that just sounded interesting to me. I can see obviously the fantasy aspects and the Da Vinci Code aspect, so I think this one might be a good book. Another book coming out December 3rd is called Bellevue by Robin Cook. And for some reason, when I was researching this book, I looked into Robin Cook, and he writes a lot of medical thrillers, which isn't necessarily, my forte, but I have read some medical thrillers by Frida McFadden, who is also a doctor. And y'all know we love Frida McFadden on this channel. So that sounded interesting to me. So you're following 23-year-old Mitt. And Mitt is a new doctor, and he is doing his residency at Bellevue Medical Center, just like all the doctors in his family before him. And his family has a history with this hospital of all doing their residencies at this hospital and working for this hospital. So he comes from a long line of doctors and a lot of tradition. And Mitt also has this sixth sense. Says he has a sensitivity to the non-physical. So I assume that means spirits or ghosts, or I don't know. I have no idea. But he has this sixth sense about him. And while he's doing this residency at this hospital and trying to, advance in his career and move on with his life, his patients just keep dying, and they keep dying under mysterious, weird circumstances. And his sixth sense is kind of drawing him towards this old part of the hospital that has been shut down. It was the Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital ward. So he can't help himself but to be drawn to this hospital. He goes there and he makes some very terrifying discoveries. So that sounded interesting to me. I mean, who doesn't love the classic abandoned psychiatric hospital horror? I mean, I feel like that's just a classic. Like, if you read horror books, you like horror books, or like being anything scary, you're gonna either watch a TV show or read a book about an abandoned psychiatric hospital where horrifying things took place there, and probably the spirits that lurk around every corner.
The next one is December 10th, and I have another physical arc of this one. It's What the Wife Knew by Darby Kane, and I've seen a lot of her books. I've never actually read her. The one they mention on here that says it's a best-selling book is Pretty Little Wife, and she had another one called The Engagement Party. This one says it's a twisty domestic thriller, a wife wondering who tried to kill her husband twice before finally succeeded, because that was supposed to be her job. And it sounds like right up my alley, like a Frida McFadden, really twisty thriller. I definitely want to read this one since I have the arc and I want to do an arc review for it. So look forward to me doing an arc review for this one.
So December 17th, I have another technology AI type book coming out. This one seems to be centered more around sci-fi, and this one's called Mechanize My Hands to War by Aaron K. Wagner. Another new author for me, and sci-fi is not really my thing, but I have been trying to dip my toe into sci-fi a little bit, and I have read a couple of sci-fi novels this year that I've enjoyed. And the description of this book was kind of hard to follow, so I tried to summarize it the best I can, but I am going to look at my notes to read it because I don't want to mess anything up. The current year in this book is 2060, and Special Agent Trey Caldill is leading a raid on a farm that's using androids as employees since their GMO crop seeds have failed. So the owner of this farm has gotten desperate when their seeds failed, and they have to hire androids, it says, to help work the fields and help make their farm profitable. During the raid, Aura, which I believe is an android that works this farm, shoots and kills a child. Aura is arrested and detained, but he's resisting any diagnostic tests that they want to run on him. And then the description goes on to say that there's nothing wrong with his circuits, but he feels broken. And I feel like since he has the choice and is resisting these tests, I feel like he might be part human, part machine. Like, I think that's what they mean by android in this book. So again, this sounded interesting. It's more sci-fi than I'm used to, but I have enjoyed the sci-fi novels that I've read this year, and I want to keep sort of dipping my toe in this genre, and I think this might be a really good blend for me to keep going in the sci-fi realm.
The last one on my list, sadly, I only have one more between November and December. That's how few I had. This one comes out December 24th on Christmas Eve. It's called Watch Your Back by Terry Perlotto. And I also own and haven't read yet What Waits in the Woods, which is a previous book by Terry. This one also sounded really good. It said, amid the depths of a bleak Boston winter, a recently married couple find their lives and their relationship unraveling after a series of deadly accidents in this brilliantly twisting domestic thriller for fans of Greer Hendricks and Megan Miranda. And that description just kind of got me, so I definitely wanted to read that one, and I wish I had an arc of that one. But hopefully I will win one and do an arc review, but I look forward to reading that one in December. So there are a lot I want to read in January. Obviously the ones that we really want to read are Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. That's like probably the top book, especially for Amanda. We already read The Crash by Frida McFadden, which you can watch our latest Frida vlog. We got advanced reading electronic copies for The Crash and both absolutely loved it, but you can click on the link if you want to hear more about that. And Grady Hendrix has another one coming out, Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, which I wish he would have released in October. I feel like that would have been perfect for Halloween. I have 2 physical arcs for January, and then there were 2 others that I was going to talk about as my cheat in the November-December most anticipated. So just more books to look forward to in the future. One I really want to read that I saw, and I do have the electronic arc for it. It's The 3 Lives of Kate K by Kate Fagan. It comes out January 7th. And the way they describe it is 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo meets First Lie Wins, electric voice-driven debut novel about an elusive best-selling author who decides to finally confess her true identity after years of hiding from her past. Real identity has been closely guarded secret until now, and it kind of almost reminds me how Frida McFadden, we're a huge fan of hers, and though she's putting her face out there, I feel that there could be such a story behind that. So we don't know who she really is. It is a pen name for her. She says that she works she's a medical professional and she works with brain injuries, but that's all we really know. This description really made me think, because one of my favorite books is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It is about a reclusive author who really finally tells the real story behind the scenes right before it's at the end of her life. And so this one sounded interesting, and I had a feeling I might be thinking of Frida when I am reading this one. So I'm looking forward to reading that one. The next one, I have the ARC copy. This one is called The Perfect Home by Daniel Knitz. It comes out January 7th. And this one is Fixer Upper meets Gone Girl, and a suspenseful and witty domestic thriller set in the world of home renovation TV, featuring a woman who becomes public enemy #1 after a horrifying discovery prompts her to flee her celebrity husband with their twin babies. Sounds really interesting. I used to be hooked at one time on HGTV and all the shows on there. I don't watch them nearly as much as I used to, but a lot of that I loved watching. So that made me think a little bit of that. I look forward to reading this. Hopefully will do an ARC review for this one too. The last 2, one I have a physical ARC and the other I have an electronic ARC, and it's the main reasons why I'm talking about them because I will be reading them in November and December. This one, Amanda has 2. It's called The Business Trip, but I don't even know if I'm going to be able to wait till November. I really want to read this one. I've been itching to read this one for a while. And this one, I think we won from a contest on shelf awareness. But one of the reasons is Frida McFadden has a blurb on the front, and she said, wow, nonstop twists and turns. Lisa Gardner also says shockingly clever. And then at the back, Frida has another blurb, and it says, I kept reading all day long because I couldn't wait to see how it ended, which really makes me want to read this. There's a lot of thriller authors on here. B.A. Paris is on here saying brilliant and addictive. Geneva Rose is on here saying wickedly entertaining. The description is about 2 women who have never met before leave town on the same plane. After a couple of days, they each message their friends and family. I've met a great guy. I'll be out of touch for a few days. His name is Trent McCarthy, and then both of them disappear. It was their chance to get away, not go away forever. So that one sounded really interesting and makes me want to read it right now. And the last one, I have an electronic ARC, which I got from NetGalley, and I want to say it was a contest maybe on Goodreads. I can't remember now. But it's called The Last Room on the Left by Leah Conan, comes out January 14th. It's twisty, addictive, feminist take on The Shining, which made me want to read it this month because we're in Halloween. It says, Carrie's life is in shambles. Her husband left her. Her drinking habit has officially become a problem, and a deadline for her big book deal is looming, and she can't write a word. She heads to a motel in the Catskills to try to finish her book. She spots something through the window, a dead, frozen body. A deadly game of cat and mouse ensues, or is it all in her mind? And that one makes me feel, I swear, if it's going to be like Woman in the Window or whatever that one was, and there's also Girl on the Train, where the protagonists are just really drinking all the time and unreliable narrators, and you have no idea what's happening. Sometimes that works in a story, sometimes it doesn't. But I swear if it ends up being like that and I don't really know what's going on and it is all in her head, I'm gonna scream. But since they're comparing it to The Shining, there's a chance it might be all in her head. Thanks for watching through all the books that we're anticipating through November and December and a little bit of January. I hope Amanda has a lot of books for her to look forward to in November and December. I know she's definitely looking forward to Onyx Storm in January, so we have a lot we are looking forward to. I'm sure we will still have lots planned in November and December, even though I don't have a lot that I specifically am looking forward to that's coming out in those months. I'm sure we will have stuff, because believe me, if you look behind me, I have a lot of books that I can read, so I'm definitely not sad about there not being too many being published in November and December that I'm looking forward to. I have a ton to read, so we'll have plenty of content. Thanks for watching, everyone, and until next time.